Hey now people, today we're going to take a look at Elevenses from Adventureland Games. For those of you that don't know, Adventureland Games was responsible for Sushi Go, which was a superb card game, one that I enjoy quite a bit. So when I heard that they had another card game, I definitely wanted to check it out. The theme of Elevenses is trying to have the fanciest, most superb tea party, a much more superb tea party than the other players at the table. And I have to tell you, the theme of this game elicited a stronger response than probably any other game I have in my collection or that I have ever played in my group. I've brought out Tanto Kore, where you're hiring sexy anime maids. I've brought out Chaos in the Old World, where you're a demon god vying for control on a stretched human skin map. None of those compared to the response I got from trying to host a tea party in Elevenses. A mixture of people laughing hysterically, being totally into it and excited to play it, or just saying, what? Really? I mean, those are the kind of responses I got, which to me, that's a sign of a game that you should definitely be interested in. But despite all of that, what Elevenses is actually a rather simple card game. Like I said, you're trying to have this tea party. You're trying to strategically use all the different cards that you have in hand representing the different aspects of a tea party, like the tea itself and sugar and sandwiches and a waiter and a tea trolley, these types of things. You're trying to put them down in such a strategic way that you score points for them. There's really not much more I want to say here. Let me take you through a brief overview of how the game is going to work. Then we're going to come back, and it's time for tea. Okay, I'm going to give you a very brief overview of Elevenses, the game of having a fancy tea party from Adventureland Games. This is a competitive game for 2 to 4 players where the goal is to, well, throw the best tea party. Mechanically speaking, you're trying to have the most points. Points are going to be measured by these sugar cubes, which are also very thematic to the game. And actually, this card, you're going to put all the sugar cubes on this sugar bowl card, and that is literally the only usage this card has in the entire game. So it's very, very useless, but it's kind of cool thematically. Now, the way you're going to score these points is by having the highest valued cards in your spread. Every player is going to get the same deck of 11 cards. You're going to shuffle them all up, keep 3 in your hand secret, then lay the other out representing your spread. During the course of the game, you're going to be swapping cards back and forth between your hand and your spread, trying to turn them face up. When they're face up, they're going to have a point value. Whoever has the most points at the end of the round is going to get 2 sugar cubes. Whoever has the second most, at least in a 3 or 4 player game, is going to get 1 sugar cube. In a 2 player game, there is no second place. It's just 2 cubes for the winner. If there's a tie for first, then every player that is tied is going to get a cube, and there is no second place. Now, like I said, you'll shuffle up these cards, you'll deal out these cards into your spread in a very certain configuration like this. Keep the other 3 in your hand. You're going to have a cheat sheet here, which will tell you the numbered slots of all the different cards in your spread, including the cards that go off the side of your spread, the 1, the 10, and the 11, all of which I'll explain a little bit later. The reason for this is that each of these cards are numbered, and when you play them face up in a spot, they have to go in that specific numbered spot. So let me tell you how the turns are going to work. You'll decide who's going to go first, and on your turn, you can take 1 action, but you have 2 options of what you do with that action. The first type of action you can take is to play a card from your hand down into your spread by putting it in the appropriate spot face up. So let's say, for instance, I wanted to play the 8 card. I'm going to go ahead and take the 8 card. I'm going to put it into the 8th spot, and I'll put that one face up. The card that was there goes into my hands. The other players don't get to see it, but now all the players see that I played the number 8 card. I'll immediately do whatever the effect is, and I'll explain that in a bit. And now, if the game were to end at a certain point and this card is still face up in the top corner, there are these little spoons. Those are what you use to determine who has the highest score at the end of the round. So it's not the face value of the card, it's the spoon value. All of the cards that are from 2 to 4 2 to 5 are going to be worth 1 spoon. The bottom row of cards are going to be worth 2 spoons. The 10 card will be worth 3 spoons, and I believe that the tea trolley is worth, yes, the tea trolley, the number 1 card, will be worth no spoons. So that's one thing you can do, is that you can play cards from your hand down into your spread to take back the other card and try to, that was just a coincidence, by the way, that the appropriate card was there, to try to get the special effects or just make sure that they're face up. Typically speaking, the cards that are lower in spoon value have more powerful effects, but the cards that have more spoon value are more negative effects for you, like having a player take a card from your hand or being able to see your hand, because they're worth more spoons. Therefore, it's just the sort of a balance, the trade-off of what you have to pay in order to get that better value for the end round scoring. But that's one action. The other type of action you can take for your one action is just doing an arrangement. This is where you can do this up to 2 times. You'll take a card from your hand, you'll swap it with a card that's down in your spread without flipping the card face up or even or looking at any other card or doing any kind of other special action. You're simply swapping cards back and forth from your hand, and that's it. In this case, you don't have to play the appropriate number down into the spot. All you're trying to do is just sift through the cards and get the right kind of cards that you want into your hand. And like I said, you can do that up to 2 times. And that is the game. You're going to be going back and forth doing this, going in clockwise order, trying to play these cards down, either play them up to get the points for them, swapping them around, or to have better plays on later turns. And you're going to keep going until someone ends the round. The way the round ends is when someone plays the 11 card, which is, of course, the Elevenses card. You can only play that card if you have 4 cards face up in your spread. You'll play the card, the round will end, and then you're going to add up all of your spoons to see who has the highest value. So before I go any further, let's go ahead and look at each of the individual cards. So you have the number 1 card, the tea trolley. It's worth no value at the end of the round, and you have to play it off to the side. Which means that when you do that, you're never going to get a card in exchange for playing it down. But when you play the tea trolley, at the end of the round, assuming it's still there and face up, you're going to gain a sugar cube on top of whatever you may or may not gain for scoring at the end of the round. The number 2 card, the T card, you get to choose a player and flip one of their spread cards value from 2 to 9 face down. The milk card, you can choose a player, you get to look at their kitchen. I'm sorry, I should have said that before. Your hand is called your kitchen. That's another little cute, quirky, thematic thing. But you get to look at their hand and you can swap for a card if you like. The sugar is arguably one of the most powerful cards in the game. While this card is face up in your spread, you may look at all of your face down spread cards. So you have free access to look at any of your cards, which makes it that much better when you try to do the arrange action. The number 5 is cups and saucers, which once you flip it face up or play it down face up, you're able to take up to 3 arrange actions right then and there. Very, very cool. The number 6, fine china. All players pass a card from their kitchen to the left. So now you see it's the 2 spoon values. We're getting into cards that are not necessarily good for you. So then that means you have to pass cards. Biscuits. All players pass a card from their kitchen to the right instead of the left. Sandwiches. Choose a player. She takes a card from your kitchen without looking at it, and you may swap for it, or return it. They may swap for it or return it. Cakes. Choose a player. She looks at your kitchen and may swap for a card. And the number 10 card, which much like the number 1 card, is going to be placed, I don't know, by the way, I'm just going through cards of a different color, that's why there's the same ones here, but the number 10 card will also be played off to the side like this, and that gives you a 3 spoon value, which is the most rewarding card in the game. However, you must show your kitchen to all players so people know what you have and might try to snipe cards from it if they're the cards that they want. The final type of card is the Elevenses card, which I already mentioned. You can only play this card if you have 4 face-up spread cards, and this card may not be passed or swapped at any time. It doesn't matter what the card effect is. If someone forces you to swap your card and this is the only card you have in hand, you just don't do it, and therefore the other players know that you have the 11. But if you have 4 face-up cards and you play this, then the round is ending, tea is served, you go to scoring. And that's the game. You're going to keep playing until you meet whatever threshold of points that you set as far as sugar cubes. First place gets 2 cubes. The second place gets 1 cube. That's only in a 3 or 4 player game. Tied for first, everyone gets 1 cube. Keep going until someone is the fanciest tea party-er ever. Let's get to my final thoughts. There's actually one last thing I want to talk about with Elevenses, and that's this little variant expansion pack of cards that comes with the game called the Guests. Now, Guests are like an extra little thing you can add. You really should play with them if you're going to play at all, because they don't add too much complexity to the game, but it's a neat little, effectively a goal that you're going to be working towards. You're going to shuffle up these cards, and there are actually 6 of them, so even if you're playing with a 4-player game, 2 of them will be out. You'll shuffle them up, deal 1 card out to each player. You'll keep it in secret. Now, on these cards, you have the depiction of your spread here with certain cards flipped face up. These are cards that you need to have face up in your spread in order for this guest to come to your tea party. Still sounds funny every time I say tea party. Anyways, if you're able to get that specific allotment of cards, in the case of Duke Dudley here, it's 2, 5, and the 8. As soon as you have those 3 cards face up in your spread, you can flip this guest over, put him in front of you, and then it will be worth 2 spoons at the end of the round. Even if something like the tea forces you to put one of your cards face down, one of these 3 particular cards face down, you still maintain control or, I don't know, guestship of this guest. It will stay face up in front of you. Those 2 points are yours forever. So just a neat little thing. Really does not complicate the game that much at all. I seriously recommend that you just play with it right off the bat. So now let's get to my final thoughts. I prefer Japanese style tea myself, and actually I think that Adventureland Games probably dropped the ball on that, since they already had Sushi Go with that Asian theme. They should have just had like an Asian tea ceremony game as opposed to the sort of British theme that they had here, but whatever. I'll go ahead and start with that theme. I like it. I think it's just quirky and fun. The same feeling I got when they did Sushi Go. It's just, not that the game is the most thematic, it's a simple card game, but it works, and it certainly elicited a good response from, whether they were interested in it or not, it elicited a response and got people interested. How could that game possibly play? And that's a good thing. I think that's what you should be vying for. What you should be trying to do when you're coming up with a theme is getting people to take notice. And I think it works here. Now component-wise, artwork-wise, I like it. It's very simple. It's very streamlined. Everything is very clear-cut. Much like in Sushi Go, and the artwork isn't like a tremendous part of the game, or it's not like very lively, but I think it works and it's nice looking. The whole game looks very classy, which is what it was going for with the theme, and I think that it's something that if you brought it out with non-gamers, what I like to call civilians, like Grandma, I think that they would see it as very inoffensive, very harmless, and therefore be more willing to give it a shot than maybe even Sushi Go, which is very cartoony looking. So that's cool when that works, and I like the cubes. And not that I always like cubes in games, but it really makes sense here that they're sugar cubes, so that's a cool thing too. As far as the gameplay, like I said, it's relatively simple. It's going to take you maybe closer to 10 minutes to explain the game, only because it is very different and unique from a lot of other card games that you've probably played, because you have your own deck of cards that you're randomizing for yourself, and you're really interacting with your own spread, but think of it like a player board that you're interacting with, trying to solve this puzzle of how you can get your cards to flip up and get you points. And the player interaction in this game is more of the take that variety, where when a lot of the lower scoring cards, because they don't count very much for value at the end of the round, have very negative effects for your opponents, forcing them to flip cards over, giving you cards, things like that. And the higher value cards are negative for you, letting your opponent have some control over what you're allowed to do and how you dispense your cards, and having to give them cards or giving them the options of taking your cards, things like that. So it's in that regard, I would say that there's going to be some people that don't like that sort of take that aspect, and there is some randomness here. There's some turns where you're going to be kind of screwed because of what someone else does to you. And I know for a fact that there's people in my group that don't like that kind of aspect, that want total control over what they're going to do. Even if there's some randomness in how the cards are dispensed, don't take that away from me. They don't like that aspect. So if you don't like that, that might be an issue for you here. I personally don't think it's kind of understated. I think that while there is randomness here, I think that the sign of a good card game is when someone who's more experienced will defeat you 9 times out of 10. And I think that will happen here, because there's some memory elements here, and there's some definite decision making as to what you should play down. You don't want to play your tea trolley too early, because someone's going to be out to get you. You're going to be in the lead because they know that you're getting a cube right away. You also may not want to play your servant too soon, because then people get to see what you have in your hands, and they're going to be targeting you, trying to get cards from your hand as well. Then the memory aspect comes in of trying to remember where certain cards are in your spread, in your little tableau out there. Okay, I already checked this card. This isn't the card that I need that I want to flip right now, but where's that other one? I think I remember where this is, and you're trying to get that. I think it's the number 4, the sugar, that lets you look at them whenever you want, which is super powerful. I'd say that's probably much more powerful than the other cards, and if someone gets that, they have a definite edge. That might be a small quibble I have with the cards and the mechanics themselves. But still, I think that there's some strategy and decision making to be had there, and it works pretty well. The different card effects, knowing when to kick them off, which ones you should use and when you should use them, also helps as well. Now, there's the advanced rules of the game that have the guest cards that you're trying to attract to your spread. I don't consider these advanced rules. I think you should play with them all the time, because the game is really easy to learn. It's not too tough, and it's not difficult at all to learn what those cards do, but they do add another interesting aspect, another interesting wrinkle, in the sense of now you have a goal to work towards. You're not just randomly trying to get cards that are worth a lot of spoons or that give you a good effect at the right time. Now you're trying to get very specific cards in order to get these extra spoons, because you'll have them forever. Even if those cards get flipped back down, you don't have to worry about it. You still keep your guest, and 2 spoons is nothing to sneeze at. I think it's worth 2 spoons, if I remember correctly. So that's a good thing. That's a cool thing that you should always play with. That's my opinion there. So all of that put together, I think this is a good, solid game. It's not going to knock your socks off. I think there's probably better, faster games. That's probably the main complaint I have about this, by the way, is that it's too long for what it is. You would probably want to play with a lesser cube count threshold to end the game. I think it's 7 in the normal game. Just do 5, because, I think you'll get a good taste for what the game is like playing with a lower count. If you do it with a max of 4 players and you're playing to 7, I think you're going to be there for a long time. And then it feels much less like the sort of lightish, almost filler game that it's supposed to be, and more like a long drawn out card game, which is not what it's supposed to be. I think it would struggle and suffer to remain interesting for that long. So that's my main complaint. But otherwise, the card play is interesting. It's got a unique theme. The card play itself is interesting. Having the cards laid out in a certain way, all these things make this stand apart from other card games that I have, and a lot of other ones that I've even heard of, and that's a very good thing. I always am looking for innovation, especially in lighter card games, because these are the kind of games that you're going to be bringing out with new people, and you want to show people that there's these cool new things going on with designer card games. And that theme is just really quirky and fun. So what can I tell you? So I recommend it. I don't recommend it necessarily for everyone, but I think it's definitely worth a try to see if it's right for your group. My name is Nick. This has been Board Game Brawl, and I'm reminding you to get out there and game every day and in every way. Take care.